Hey, listeners, and welcome to the You Are Epic podcast. This is where we honour the people who've helped build not just our industry, but our communities. I'm Angela Hucker, and I am so glad that you're here. So, I'm taking the time to sit down with people who've been in construction for years, people who've been through the ups, the downs, and everything in between. You're going to hear real stories of resilience, growth, and moments that shaped who they are. This podcast is for those that want to learn more from people who've been walking this path for some time, and they're helping to lift up others and quietly making a difference along the way. It's also to show you that your journey matters and your voice matters. And in case you've forgotten, you are epic. Let's get into it. So today's guest is Zubyer Athar, a strategic HR leader with deep experience shaping high-performing cultures across some of the world's most complex mega projects. With a career spanning oil and gas, mining, utilities, power, and transport, Zubyer has led people strategies on major construction, maintenance, and shutdown environments. A master's qualified change and project management specialist, he's known for his commercial focus, safety mindset, and ability to partner with leadership to build engaged, resilient teams that deliver. So, welcome, Juba. It's awesome to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you.
So, one question that I always love to start with, which I'm always curious about, is how did you get started in this industry?
Um, it is a bit of an interesting one because I did a degree in logistics and out of the UK, started my career in recruitment um, back in 1998. I guess you can say prior to the internet even existing.
Yeah.
Um, I did that for a while, in and out of internal working in operations and so on as well. But it probably would have been late 2000s, like 2010 ish, where I kind of decided to go and explore something a little bit more internal where I can actually add more value.
Mm,
Recruitment was great, did really well, worked with a lot of people, but the relationship ended,
mm,
once that placement was made. So I made a decision to pursue my master's at that point and a decision to move out of recruitment and go internal. Took a while, but we made a decision as a family to go interstate, and I joined Bechtel to work on the gas plants being built on central Queensland. So three
mm,
of those major jobs, they were the first of its kind. Coal seam gas to LNG plants. There was three being built side by side.
mhm.
10,000 people on an island in the middle of nowhere. So that was my first foray to go internal. So it was pretty daunting. But no, that was good. I was there for a couple of years, did some work for them over in WA as well before I relocated back to Sydney and joined another organisation over here. Stayed with them for 7 years, and that's where I probably expanded more across mining, transport, utilities, and all of those other sectors that you mentioned. So that's pretty much how I got my foot into the environment that I'm operating in now.
Mm. And so, what's your current role at the moment?
So I working for a major construction in a joint venture. We've got a long-term contract with Sydney Water, looking after and delivering capital projects and maintenance services for their assets in Western Sydney. So joint venture of five organisations, sorry, and I'm the head of people for that joint venture. We're probably about 700 direct staff at the moment. Then we've got ad hoc engineering resources we call upon on top of that. And then we've got our client staff as well. So we're probably topping about 1,000 people all up.
Wow. Okay, awesome. So, with the people space that you've been in, what's some of the challenges I guess you've seen over the years in that space?
Well, if we look over let's say the last 15 years, um, resourcing was probably the biggest one
Mm,
because there was a huge amount of investment in New South Wales infrastructure. Prior to that, there was a lot of work going on in the mining space and the oil and gas space as that kind of grew, and there was
yeah.
a lot of investment and construction going on in that in remote areas. But probably the biggest challenge was here in New South Wales, where they were expanding roads, building tunnels, and obviously the big metro jobs that took a hold. Finding qualified and skilled resources was the biggest challenge, because it was the first metro in Australia. So
Mm.
having the skills for people who have been in that environment didn't exist, for
Mm.
starters, unless you went overseas.
Mm.
And second, it was probably New South Wales' first mega scale project, where we're talking in the tens of billions of dollars. So that level of investment,
Mm.
scale, complexity of the project, integration factors, being able to find people that have worked in that environment.
Mm.
It was easy to find people that had worked in oil and gas and large scale projects,
Yeah.
but you're talking about projects that were on a single site across multiple, thousands of square meters.
Mm.
Here we're talking about 20 kilometers worth of track,
Yeah.
underground tunnels, and then you've got the buildings and the stations. There was a small footprint, and there was multiples of those. So being able
Mm.
to control and coordinate all of that stuff, that had its challenges, not just from a skills perspective, but from a culture
Yeah.
perspective and coordination and interfacing and then managing performance, as well as people who've never done that kind of thing before. So a
Mm.
lot of upskilling required as well.
Mm. So that's with the skills and the resources, that's something that obviously Australia is facing an issue at the moment. And I'm just wondering with where you are, how you're managing to navigate that.
Um, we try to upskill wherever we can, or probably more so cross skill. So
Mm.
the metro, when I was on those jobs, that was a difficult one. Where I am now in the water space, it's a relatively closed industry. You either want to be in it or you don't. And most people know everyone. And, Sydney Water is pretty much an industry in itself. They control the market in this sense. If you've worked in there for them, or you've been a contractor, you can find those people. But there is a big pipeline of work coming from them over the
Mm.
next 10 years. So we still got to cross skill people from other sectors. So where we're spending a lot more time is making sure we've got a solid base, where we've got core skills, long-term skills that would probably be our foundational level of employment, and then
Mm.
we'll bring people in and flex up and down as we need to.
Mm.
That's probably where the skills are going to be coming. We do self-perform a lot of our work, so it's our intent to hire a lot of these people directly. And the good thing is our scope is probably more civil, bit of electrical and bit of mechanical in there, but mostly civil excavation and
Mm.
the building of those plants. The rest of it is specialist skills that we might need to bring in. So it's actually decent for us to be able to upskill some of those people, new entrants into the market quite quickly. We
Mm.
can bring in newbies, on Cert 2s or Cert 3s in civil construction. And we've done that quite recently, actually.
Mm.
And we're retaining a lot of people. We're actually below 18% in terms of retention,
Wow.
which is really good because we're spending our time investing in our frontline leadership,
Mm.
and not just technically, but where the benefit is actually giving them the skills to be leaders, teaching them up in the softer skills, including, the people skills. So
Mm.
we don't get the complaints and grievances being escalated up to us and us having to deal with it. We're arming those guys with the best way to be able to handle it and manage it themselves. And if it becomes really troublesome, then we get involved. But the
Mm.
more we can teach them to be a little bit more engaging, that's being quite fruitful at the moment. So
Mm.
we haven't had to struggle too much because our retention has dropped quite significantly because we've done those kind of
Mm.
activities.
And that's something that is it seems to be a bit of a missing link in the industry as well as that investment, and the investment is the right word, the investment in the people about how to actually navigate these issues. So, you're obviously getting the return on the investment with knowing that the retention numbers are decreasing as well to a smaller percent as
Yeah, there's
well.
the probably the big thing that I've seen is that that feel good factor. Like people want to come to work and they want to be happy when they come to work and they want to be productive, right? So if I was looking at it now, we've got a few big jobs. I'd be happy to say that we're not, we don't pay excessive amounts of salary or anything like that. We've got long-term jobs. We've got great flexibility in the way we work. We treat you like adults. You don't have to be, well, the way we look at it is, you know, if you're hitting your goals, you're meeting your targets, you're doing what needs to be done, then great, you're doing what you're being paid to do.
Mm.
Um, so we have had people leave us to go and take huge salaries
Money.
on very big jobs, and that's been frequent. And we've been happy to turn around and go, so it is what it is. I wouldn't turn that kind of money if I was at your stage of life and so on. But interestingly, and you'd probably agree with this as well, I've been on those big jobs
Yeah.
and I've done those big jobs. So I
Yeah.
know what comes with those big salaries and the expectations when you've got deadlines and milestones and things like
Mm.
that. It can be quite ruthless. So we've had a few people come back because of it.
Yeah. Wow.
And we haven't gone back to the salary that we're getting over there. We've come back and said, look, we'll pay you what you did before because that's the role, right? And they've gone, yeah, no, that's totally cool because they don't have to be still at work at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
We're flexible along those lines. And when I mentioned before about the feel good factor, we do a lot of stuff in the community, environmental. So we run a STEM program that we do annually with an all-girls school, year 5. And it's the third year in a row that we've done it. And it's really good because the projects have been very, very forthcoming because they want to get involved.
Yeah. Okay.
And they gets them out of the site, gets them to talk about their projects. We all know engineers and builders love to talk about the work they do,
Yeah.
and how great and awesome they are. So that's been really good to get our environmental guys, our community guys all involved to go out to the school, meet these 10, 11-year-old girls, help them, support them, talk to them, and encourage them, and show them what is out there,
Yeah.
because they didn't necessarily know. It also gives our guys a different perspective on the work that we do and how the child actually perceives it. So that's been really good, and it gives it a lot more of a feel-good factor and acknowledgement and recognition that, hey, I know you're going to work and you're doing a great job there, but this is the impact you're having around the community.
Mm.
And this is what the kids love to see, and it puts a smile on everyone's face, and they love to come to work because of it. So that's probably our biggest differentiator, and we have to turn around and, like I said, it's working for us with our attrition rate pretty low,
Mm.
and and it's good culture in that sense, especially in a joint venture environment. They can be quite complex, quite
Mm.
combative, but here it's probably worked out pretty well. We don't make reference to the parent companies. We've got our own brand, and that's what people associate with. So kind of eliminate um, that kind of vibe.
Mm. And I love that with engaging with grade 5 girls as well to introduce them, because a lot of people are starting a bit later, like it might be, grade 7 or 8, but it's sort of, kids are already starting to make up their minds about things, and they're not always exposed to what's actually available and what's out there. And especially in this industry, there's so many things that you can do. Like there is literally a job for everyone, I say.
Mm,
You got everyone from an executive right through to a tradesperson, right through to an engineer, right through to estimating, all that sort of stuff. There's literally a job for
mm,
everyone based on what your
literally,
skills are. So,
and their mindset is very different. So
yeah,
we've done the schools expo. So like every October, November time, there's a girls tech expo, girls tech day, and we go along there and we participate and we exhibit, and that's literally from, let's say, year 6 all the or actually probably year 3, 4, all the way up to 12 for people looking for careers and things like that. But those girls in year 4, year
mm,
5, I'd probably take year 6 out. So we're talking less than 10 years old, right? Less than 11, 10 years old.
yeah,
Their mind is still very innocent and very creative.
yes,
After that, we're seeing a little bit more less interest, and they're there for the
yeah,
merch.
yeah,
Otherwise, those other kids, they ask a million and one questions. They want to get involved.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's the exciting part because their creativity is, when we're giving them a problem to solve, their creativity is like, yeah, it's nice to see because, we get stuck in being all serious and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and it's piquing their curiosity as well, and showing them these sorts of real world things that can be done that they
Mm.
wouldn't normally be exposed to. So
They go home and talk about it.
yeah, which is great.
Mm.
And I love that. And I love how that actually, it's not only about tying it to the community, but it's actually showing the employees about how it all connects together, that the work they're doing is important to the people, but it's actually also influencing, the next generation as well that's coming through, that it's opening their eyes about potential careers in the industry as well. So, and
Mm.
giving them a little bit of buy-in and ownership about the work that they're doing, and perhaps making them feel a little bit proud that, they're actually helping a community with some stuff as well. So,
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I like about it the most, different to, say, residential construction and all of those types of jobs, which is
mm,
great industry in itself. But this sort of stuff, as with the LNG plants, rail, transport, they're the stuff that you generally don't see. And
yes,
that's the stuff that goes under the ground, right? And in
correct.
the pipes. And people don't know what happens in those. So I still tell the story with my kids that when we did the metro, being able to walk the tunnels, and not a lot of
Yeah,
people get to do those when you're building them, and
yeah,
going to sewage treatment plants and down those areas, which all happen behind the scenes, and you don't
yeah,
realise that when those go down, you could potentially be without sewage or water,
correct.
sanitation, all of those things. And we're going, no, that site that you went and saw, if that stopped, you'd be without a toilet for a while.
Mm,
And they're like, oh, well, what happens after that? And I said, what do you think happens? So it gets them thinking that,
mm,
so there's a lot of other things that happen that they generally don't get to see,
mm,
which is great. And like you say, it opens them up to environmental type roles and
mm,
commercial because they're like going, oh, how much does it cost? How long does
mm.
it take?
Yeah,
And what do you do with all the land? And this you've excavated it. Where are all the trees? You're going to put more trees down. So it's
yeah,
interesting to sort of see where their mind goes, which really gets our guys going. These people live in the area. That's important to them.
yes, yes,
So they can now, for our workers, can now see the value that they're adding. And now they want us to go and do it at their kids' schools and so on and so forth. So now they're feeling part of everything that we're doing.
yes.
And that's where, you know, salary's great. People have got lives to live, but that get out of bed factor going into work
Mm.
tops it every time.
I love that. And it's so important. And it just adds another element to it that a lot of people miss as well. And there was a
Mm.
word that you said before that I think is really important to touch on, which was the culture. And of course, you're head of people and culture, so it's in your title as well. But um, with the culture, what do you think helps define a good culture?
To me, I think it's probably inclusion.
Mm,
Um, there's a lot of times where ideas all revolve around commercial stuff,
mm,
but and it comes out of head office or an ivory tower somewhere that someone's looking at numbers and things like that, right? But the guys and girls on the ground, are the ones dealing with the problems day to day. And it
mm,
could be something as very simple as, why do I still use a spreadsheet to complete my
mm,
timesheets? Um, I just want to be able to see what competencies my guys have got. Why is that so difficult? Um, so these gloves, they're not very comfortable. So can we get something else? Right? Little things like that
mm,
makes them go, oh, okay. So I get out to site as often as I can. So, for example, we've got a traffic control team. They'll come out and go, it's really, really hot. Okay. Yeah, it is. It's 35, 40 degrees in the middle of summer and so on. So I'll take that feedback on and I'll speak with the appropriate people and then we'll go and get them out a different type of hard hat with the neck and neck coolers that go around that they can use all the time. And
mm,
we'll give those guys larger eskies for cooler water. And going out there and then giving them that, they're like, oh,
mm.
they heard me. I like that. And so they know that their ideas aren't just sitting on the ground. It's being escalated up. So if we can get that from the ground, those tiny little things don't cost a lot, but it's personal. And that's where I think the culture shows that, you know, you're listening to them. Similarly to the supervision, if I was to go to them and ask them what their biggest problem is, they might just go, yeah, look, I've got about 15 people, you know, bit of conflict here, bit of there, day in, day out. And it's kind of like, okay, well, let's talk to you. What's the issue? Performance, personality clashes. How do you want to manage that? And then we'll try and get them to talk to those guys and listen to them a little bit more so they can adjust their styles accordingly and give them the tools to be able to do that, to be effective leaders. Because there are a lot of guys, you know, if you jump back to resourcing and you're upskilling them, you're moving people from project engineers to project managers, leading hand to supervisors. You know, you're talking about a leading hand to becoming a supervisor. You're talking about a guy who's now, or a girl, who's now going to be leading their friends.
Correct.
different mindset associated with that. So
Yeah.
what skills do they need around it?
Yes.
You know, dealing with more paperwork and systems. Normally we just go, good job, you're doing really well. Now you're going to start doing this, but no tools on how to manage people. So being more closer to them, that's where I think creates the culture that it's supportive. We're educating them, you know, doesn't necessarily always need to be putting them on a course. You know, I always use the analogy or the question. Well, if I was to ask you a question, can you remember everyone that you've worked with in your career?
Not
Probably
at
not,
all.
right? Could you remember all of your managers that you've worked with?
Most of them.
Most of them, right?
Yeah.
So as a manager and a leader, that's the impact you're having on people around you,
Correct.
right? So you will be remembered, whether it be good or bad. They'll remember you, right? So people have got to understand that's the lasting impact and influence that they can have on the people around them. So for me, I'm thinking that if someone's moving into that kind of role, bear that in mind. And how do you want to actually be remembered? And you can use that throughout life, right? So I think all of that contributes to a particular culture. You know, no different to people saying there's one person that's had a bit of an influence on their lives, career-wise, personally, whatever it might be. Most people can remember that. To me, I think that's the biggest cultural impact that someone could potentially have. You don't want to, you might want to achieve your goals and hit your targets and milestones, but you don't want to leave a wake of disaster behind you in the process. Right?
No, not at all.
So to me, I think it's really more about keeping it personal, supporting them, listening to them, and being honest and open without being disrespectful. So everyone wants to learn, everyone wants to do a good job. No one wants to be, you know, identified as someone that's not committed to doing their job. So it's just whether they behave or misbehave in that scenario, we just got to find the right way to be able to do that. So
Yeah. And that's absolutely spot on, because there's a lot of, unfortunately for the individual, there's a lot of people who are put into these positions where they're then having to manage people and they're not given those skills about how to communicate, how to manage, how to lead, all of that sort of stuff. They're just kind of dumped into it because there is a skill shortage, and it's like, well, you look like you've got potential, let's put you in it. And then they're left high and dry, and it's causing a lot of issues in the industry as well. So
yeah. So one of the things that I've done here is I've rolled out and delivered situational leadership training, the one through Blanchard. And too often people tarnish people with a broad brush. Put someone in that role, not working, they're not performing, whatever it might be, right? The reality, in my view, is no, they're good at what they do. They're just not good at that one thing. So really good at what they do, really terrible with technology. So they should be viewing that person as a learner on the technology space, but they're good at their job. Or it could be vice versa, great technically. Or let's look at a planner, contracts manager, whatever it might be. Well, I'll use this as an example. We might have a contract administrator or a contract manager. really fantastic at their job, but we operate on an NEC4 contract out of the UK. Not a lot of people have got that experience. So we would say, contract administrator, brilliant at your job, really good, successful, we want you on the project, but you don't know anything about NEC4 contracts.
Mm.
So you're a learner in that. So we can't tarnish you there saying you don't know what you're doing because we operate under these contracts. We just know you're good, you just don't know about that bit.
Yeah.
So we should educate you on that. And that's our responsibility to be able to do that. So you can target your leadership or style or development specific to that individual because it will be different from person to person. And that's where that situational style comes in, which I'm a big fan of because it's acknowledging that you are good at what you do and you're good at certain things. But, think about a learner driver.
Yeah.
Very responsible. Doesn't know how to drive a car though, but they'll develop as they go along. And there's a level of confidence and competence that comes with that. And I think that's the element that we need to develop. And I use that throughout life as well. So if people acknowledge that, I think that, again, personalizes learning to an individual, to develop them, to grow them in the role that you want them to grow in, which people value. And I think that contributes to the cultural side of things too.
And it's about that, for me, it's about that gap identification. What's the skills gap that you don't have that we can actually help fix for you? Because you've got, you might have 8 out of the 10 skills, but what's the gap that we can help bridge for you to help give you 10, to help give us 10 out of 10 of those skills as well. So, and that's where, not everyone is actually doing that. So it's awesome to hear that your company is actually doing that because it's that continual improvement for the individual as well. So then they can grow, they can improve, they can actually deliver as well and give back to the company, and the company's getting the ROI as a result of that. So
100%. And I think if the individual knows the value that they're providing to that and how important that role is in order to achieve those metrics, that goes a long way. That goes a very long way to someone that might be doing, traffic control unfortunately gets a bit of a bad rap in the industry as a whole. But if they weren't there, our guys aren't going to be safe.
Correct.
Nor is the community, right? So it's probably one of the most high-risk roles out there. And those guys need to know that the value that they're adding is insane. And I've seen so many bad things happen in that environment. So to me, I think that's really important that we acknowledge them in terms of the work that they do, because they kind of get underdone a little bit. And that's not to say for other roles as well and things like that. So I think, all of that, it all adds up. It's kind of like it's like a cake, isn't it? You've got to chuck in all these ingredients and it all makes the big thing, right?
That's right. And if you miss one, then the cake's no good. So
exactly right. Exactly right.
Exactly.
Might be edible, but it might not be that great.
Might not be fully edible. So
that's right.
Instead of a whole slice, it's just a couple of bites. That's all. So
that's right. Yeah.
So have you ever had without obviously breaching any confidentiality or anything, have you ever had, you've got quite a career, and especially in the people space, a situation that's been really, like, whether it's a cultural misalignment or just like a really challenging situation managing people, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. A couple of times. So I suppose it was probably just being factual. So if when I moved to Queensland for that role up there, they were ramping up to deliver this gas plant. It was the first time Bechtel were actually doing 3 gas plants side by side. There was big probity issues because there were 3 different clients they were building them for. Mobilising that was a bit of a challenge.
Yes.
The person prior to me had made some commitments that they were going to meet the schedules. When I came on board and I looked at that and I was like, that's not going to be achievable based on the current structure. So we had to re-engineer all of that, which meant restructuring the team to be able to do that. And that had its challenges for sure. But it was really almost like a work in progress. And we went through a few iterations as to what the team looked like. And that was purely done just by talking to them, to get their input to be able to turn around and go, hey, we've got a problem. You guys are going to be the ones that are going to be doing it. So
Mm.
how do we fix it? How do we do it? What do you want to do? These are the constraints. How would you do this and how would you do that? What are you capable of doing? Because I was not a local, they were. So getting their input was pretty important. And then when I relocated back to Sydney, that was another challenge. I took on board a shared services role initially with the company, and we had a recruitment team that was based in Newcastle. Didn't make sense. So over a bit of time, we moved that back to Sydney. Bit of change in the process.
Yeah.
The structure was very different as well. So I looked after recruitment, onboarding, and the advisors. Restructured that slightly because of how we needed to adjust it. So the way I generally look at it is, what does the business need? Because our role is to ultimately support the business in achieving what they need to achieve. So they come to us for advice, for recruitment, onboarding their staff, and there was a bit of a disconnect through those processes. So understanding where the problems were for the business and what their expectations of our team was enabled me to sit down with the team directly and go, what do you think we need to be delivering? And how that matched with what the business was looking for, and being able to identify going, well, do you now understand why the business is perceiving this function in a particular way?
Mm.
So let's re-engineer that and how you guys want to be perceived, solve
Mm.
those problems that they're looking for. Exactly the same thing that I'm doing here. They just want to do their job, and we're supposed to be supporting them, being able to add value, facilitate that. Then we can demonstrate that as a function that we are adding value, and we're not just, letterboxes. Do this, do that. Here you
Yeah.
go. So we're actually adding some value in that sense, and they can come to us more constructively. And that's where I want to take the team. And when we speak to the team with that directly, that gets them to see how they're adding value. They're wanted, they're needed, and the businesses there going, oh, these guys do listen to us. So a lot of it just comes down to listening and understanding what
Mm.
the actual problem is, and how we can tweak it. I look at it also as project management versus product management.
Mm.
So we've got a problem, got to solve it. We now have a project. You've delivered the solution. It's working now.
Mm.
You've got to maintain it and sustain it. So now you're moving into product management, where you just got to make that product or service
Mm.
continuously better. You deliver the project and it's delivering the outcome they wanted, but it could
Mm.
always be better. So the mindset of going to, I've done the job, set and forget, to, I've done the job, but now how do I maintain that and continuously provide a better service and outcome and for the business? So we're now continuously adding value, and the team are like, oh, I can see we're doing better. Great job. And the recognition then comes from seeing the outcome of your efforts.
Mm. I love that. That's awesome. And it's clear that you've got a real passion in this space with improvement and systems and designs and that continual improvement as well that you touched on as well. So what
As
I'd
long as it
love to
adds value.
yeah, and adding value as well. So what I'd love to hear is like what drives you with this? Because there's always when people have a passion, there's always something that drives them, like there's a reason for it. So
I might have mentioned it before. It's having a story to tell. So if I was to look back in 15 years' time, and my kids are like, and the grandkids are like, what did you do? I can turn around and say, hey, those LNG plants up in Queensland, Australia's first metro, all of this Sydney, all of that water that's coming out of your taps and stuff like that. This is what we did, and these are the challenges that we faced.
mm,
When you're walking down the street and saying, yeah, I did that, this is how it works, and they can see it, being able to tell a story like that, to me, is great. So it took a while for me to get there, but that's just keeps it interesting. For
yeah.
me, that's what probably excites me about the jobs that I do.
Yeah, I love that. And when you think back on your career and all the projects you've been involved in and the different sites that you've worked and the different companies that you've worked, what's like a real standout moment for you? One that you're really proud of?
In all fairness, there's probably been quite a few. Um, One of the ones was we had a contract to deliver some work in Queensland. We just won it. We needed to mobilise a few people onto it. Probably needed to mobilise about 150 over a period of time. Unsure how to do it, so I proposed an assessment centre style process. No one in the business had ever done anything like that before. So it was a little bit touch and go, but we got about 15 people involved in putting it all together. And we got them all involved. We flew up to Queensland. We stayed in a hotel, and I said, "All right, we're going to test all of this stuff out." So I ran them through the activities, the steps, and all of these things, and they were like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." And then it all ran like clockwork, which I was like over the moon about. So that was great. That was fantastic, because the value that gave to the business and
Mm.
the quality and caliber of the candidates we got through was insane, and they were all involved, and everyone knew everyone when they started on the job. And then another one was when I was doing the metro jobs, the apprentices that we delivered. We did Australia's first rail, Indigenous rail traineeship.
Oh,
That was
wow.
fantastic. We had about 15 people come through that. That was great. And another one was, and I look at Sydney Metro Northwest, um, was the first of the metro lines. And what I liked about that job specifically was that was when they were setting those KPIs around number of apprentices, trainees,
Yes.
gender diversity, social procurement, all of that stuff. And during that phase was when Gladys was in the Premier, and she'd made the commitment that projects over a certain value must have a minimum of 20% apprentices and trainees for roles that qualified for that.
Hmm.
And it was our apprentices that they used as the gauge. So when she was doing that press
Oh,
conference,
wow.
it was our apprentices that were behind them,
Wow.
because we were the first ones that kicked that all off the ground, and that was that was a great opportunity, and that's now been pretty much in all of the contracts as they've gone forward.
Awesome. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so when they first rolled those KPIs out, when the contract was first awarded, I was comfortable to turn around and go, these are not achievable based on the way it was worded in the contract.
Yeah.
So it probably took about 18 months to work through with them to go, not doable, doesn't quite fit. And then it got adjusted to the wording, and that's when they released it as a statement that that's what the policy is now going to be. So yeah, those sort of things that was great. I can look back and go, and I still do that stuff. I was involved in some of those
Yeah.
conversations around getting that all sorted,
Yeah.
um, and how it's evolved over time. So that's really good. And there's a network of people around Sydney now that we all know each other. We all help each other out and stuff.
I love that. I love that. And what awesome things to be, really proud of as well, like because it's making a difference with minority groups as well. And, like even that recruitment one that you touched on as well in Queensland, and then the minority groups in for Sydney Metro and stuff like that's just incredible. And to be able to work through it, like just because something's there in black and white doesn't mean it can't be adjusted so it is fit for purpose as well. So,
Yeah, it's got to be fit for purpose, and we've got to make sure that the intent
mm,
is honourable in that sense.
correct, correct. No, I
You know, we're
love
not
that.
we're not we're not doing things just for the sake of hitting a target and a number and manipulating and
Yeah.
creative accounting is pointless. So for me, it's like you might miss the target. It's all right, as long as you are comfortable that I can sleep at night. That we tried to do the right thing. We did the best we could. It is what it is.
No, that's awesome. And it's all about that. It's about having that open, honest communication as well between the parties to be able to come to a mutual agreement how it can be done as well and keeping everyone updated and the stakeholders updated as well. So
100%, and keeping them included in the process because they all want to be
yeah.
part of it, right? So,
Especially when it's something new, because when it's the first time doing it, everyone wants it to be a success so it can be adopted as well. So
and there's everyone likes to be in the press sometimes, right?
well,
Everyone wants to be promoted to some degree. But
exactly.
but in the same breath, I do. My father-in-law told me this at one point that you don't have to be on the front page to be successful.
No.
you can do it quietly and behind the scenes and be comfortable with yourself that that's what you're doing. Um, you don't need to shout it from the rooftops. You don't need to be on that front page. You don't need to flash your cash in that sense. Just be that night, and that's resonated pretty well to say, "Oh, I'm comfortable. I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing a good job here." So
Well, I think you definitely are one of our quiet success stories in the industry. And thank you for everything that you're doing to make a difference. What I'd love to ask you in closing, if there's one bit of advice that you could pass on to anyone listening, that you think is important for people to know, whether it's about the industry or just about life or leadership or people, anything that you've gone, if I had the opportunity to say this to someone, it would be this. What would your words of wisdom be?
feedback is a gift. So
Yes.
take it on board constructively. People don't want you to fail. Um, so if there's constructive, it may come across impersonal. Don't take it personally. Um, take it as a learning piece for you to just get better at what you're doing. So you don't want to have a blind spot.
Mm,
You may be doing things that other people may not necessarily see or understand, or put your hand up and ask a question, take the feedback on board constructively, um, and just give it a go. Be nice, be kind, be respectful, and
mm,
that's I think that's all anyone can ask for.
absolutely. And that's one of my taglines is just be kind always because you never know what someone's dealing with. So
No, that's right. And you never know in a small industry like we have here in Sydney,
yeah.
you're going to cross paths.
Well, it's like you and I worked for the same company many years ago, and here we are years later crossing paths again. So
That's
it's
right. I know
it's
exactly
actually a
right.
small industry. So
Very small. That's exactly right.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time and thank you for the difference that you're making in the industry and being one of our quiet success stories.
I appreciate it.
With
Looking forward to what you're going to be releasing after this.
yeah, no, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat to us about culture and leadership and just different initiatives that you've helped implement over the years and it's certainly made a difference as well. So thank you so much for your time and we're very grateful to have you.
No, I appreciate it, Angela. You have a good time and appreciate you including me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode today. I hope this conversation gave you something that you can take with you, whether it be a little bit of insight, inspiration, or maybe just a reminder that you're not alone. If it resonated with you, please share because we're better when we help build each other up. And remember that your experience, your story, and your journey, it all matters more than you know. Until next time, stay kind, stay connected, and never forget you are epic.